Good evening and welcome to The Law and You. We're glad you can join us tonight because you are in it for a treat. We have with us tonight Mr. Jeffrey Janoff. Jeffrey, good afternoon and
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Jeffrey has been in private practice for over 27 years. He is a partner at the law firm of Bostwick and Janoff. He specializes exclusively in representing plaintiffs with personal injury matters, and I thought he would be a fantastic and very good, I should say, more than fantastic, speaker for us to talk about personal injury. He is a graduate of Santa Clara University School of Law and comes to us with a tremendous amount of experience, and we welcome you to the show again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Okay, well, why don't we start the show by telling our viewers something about yourself, and I know you're member of a lot of association and has been one of the best trial lawyers in Santa Clara County, at least, if not all of California. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice, and why are you going to be a very interesting guest for us tonight?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, so I think I have insights into what the tips people should know in case they do get into an accident. Hopefully they won't, but if they do, there are certain things they should do and think about, and I think I can give that advice.
Good. Tell us a little bit about your association with different legal and trial lawyers associations and your background, and so people will get to know you a little better on a personal level.
Sure. I have been president of the Santa Clara County Trial Lawyers Association. I'm still on the board of directors of that organization, and we promote, it's an organization for plaintiff lawyers. We share ideas and help each other. I have been very active in the legal community for over 25 years. I went to Santa Clara University, so I'm local from this area. Although I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and went to school back in New York State, but I came out here for law school, and I never want to go back.
Well, and we welcome you to California, and we're happy to have you with us here.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your practice. Give me an example of a typical case that you would see walk into your office, basically.
Right. The most common case that we see, of course, is going to be a rear-end accident that happens on 280 or Highway 101, something like that, with commuter traffic, and there's a bumper-to-bumper type of an accident. That's probably the most common. Let me give you an example of a case a little bit more interesting than that, just to kind of use as a vehicle to discuss these different things. A gentleman on his way home, 50-year-old gentleman, just done with work for the day, thinking about getting home to his wife and kids, driving along on the freeway at freeway speeds, and another vehicle, not paying attention, tries to change lanes. As he changes lanes, hits the driver's side rear portion, sending my client's car into a spin, clockwise spin, 360, actually 540 degrees. So it spun 1.5 times. He ended up hitting another car. He goes off into the shoulder. In that situation, emergency personnel, ambulance is called, police are called to the scene. And once he's taken to the hospital. Once he's out of the hospital, now he has to face, what are the issues that I need to deal with here? Fortunately, there is a police report that comes out of that type of case. And the police report will have lots of information as to who was involved on the other side, insurance companies and that type of thing. It's really important in a serious accident, and I would call that a serious accident. If you have to go to the hospital from an accident, that is serious. So in that type of situation, I would definitely encourage that person to call an attorney to get assistance, because there's just a lot of things they need to take care of.
Okay. Well, let's assume this unfortunate incident or accident happened. What kind of tips would you give to someone that was involved in an accident such as you described?
The first thing that's most important is that normally the person involved is not sophisticated in what happens in a car accident. They don't know what the rights are, and so it's not a great idea for them to be talking to the insurance company for the person that caused the accident, because the insurance company will call them. They have a kind of a first strike mentality, so they want to get in there right away, take a recorded statement from the person. That means they're going to be on the phone, they're going to be recording everything that's said, and the person is not really in the right frame of mind to be doing that. And they don't know what should be said and what shouldn't be said, and so it's a good idea to simply just decline that. You don't have to give that statement. That's the first thing. Getting the police report would be the next thing. and also contacting your own insurance company. Your own insurance company can be very good at dealing with property damage and providing you with medical insurance if you have that coverage. So those are the main things to start out with.
Let me ask you a question. If let's say I was involved in this accident and I'm calling my own insurance company and they still ask me to give them a recorded statement, would you advise me to give my own insurance company such a recorded statement?
Yes, I would, because you actually have to do that. There's something called a cooperation clause in your own policy that requires you to do that, and that's okay. There's no problem with doing that.
But there is no, I mean, I'm required to do that, and I cannot say, well, I want to seek advice from legal counsel first or something like that.
Well, you actually could say that you want to get legal advice first. You could have your attorney present when you give the statement, but it's okay to give that statement.
Okay.
The other thing you want to talk to your own company about is photographs. Okay. They're often the best source of getting photographs of the vehicle. And photographs of the vehicle damage is very, very important. It's important for a couple of things. Reason number one would be to determine how the accident happened. We learn a lot by the property damage, where it's located, to figure out how the accident happened. Number two is to show impact. If it's a large damage, it indicates a bigger impact and more serious injury, perhaps. And it is important to document the scene so that it could be used later on in the case.
The reason I ask whether I'm supposed to seek counsel before talking to my own insurance company is oftentimes there is an issue of coverage with my own insurance company. And I'm not so sure whether sometimes what I would say may be interpreted in a way where my own insurance company will deny coverage based on whatever language there is in the insurance contract. And I don't know whether you had that experience before or not, and whether it is wise for someone to seek legal counsel before engaging in any conversation, even with their own insurance company.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you're at all unsure or feeling a little uneasy, then it's certainly a good idea to get an attorney to talk to about that. Sometimes that is an issue with coverage, because you may lend your car to somebody else. Exactly. You may give it to a son or daughter. Someone might be excluded from the policy. There's a lot of issues like that can come up.
And if you do need to speak to a personal injury lawyer, if you are unfortunately encountered with a car accident, you may want to give Jeffrey Janoff a call. Jeffrey Janoff is here in San Jose, and you can reach him at 408-286-2300. The number again is 408-286-2300, and it will be flashing on the screen shortly. Jeffrey, let's move on and say, when is it really necessary to seek legal help? We just talked about this a little bit, but is there a case where would you call too small to seek attorney's advice? What is your answer to that?
Well, we operate in a little different way than most attorneys in other areas of law, because we don't work on an hourly basis. We work on what's called a contingency basis. So that means that if you're not working, you have no money, you can't afford an attorney, you can always get an attorney that will accept your case and then get paid at the end of the case on a percentage basis. Now, if the value of the case happens to be such that it is very, very small, there isn't going to be sufficient value for a contingency attorney to get involved in the case. But in my own practice, I generally like to help people with all size cases, and if it's really too small, I will help them go to small claims court, because a lot of times insurance companies will not be very cooperative when it comes to the small cases, and they will offer money that is really not appropriate amount to compensate someone that's been in an accident, even a small accident. So small claims court is available. It's very easy. I help my clients prepare for that, fill out the forms. They go there. The insurance company can't get up and talk, only the person involved in the case. And they can present their case to a judge, and they can usually get a fair result that way. So there's always avenues.
And what would you charge in case you have to advise someone if the case is not big to take for litigation in superior court and you have to go to a small claim court, what would you charge them approximately?
I don't charge anything.
Oh.
Because I see
You're my kind of attorney.
I see everyone on a consultation, free consultation basis, and
okay.
I kind of have a soft spot for just helping people that way.
Well, that's very kind and very good of you, and I'm sure that is good business practice, I would say. Okay, so there are no two cases. You know, if the case is too small, you will still give advice to the person that was involved in the accident to seek remedy in a small claim court.
Right. I mean, you never really know until you actually have the person in there and talking to them, and sometimes they don't realize all of the things that they're entitled to in a case.
Next question, it really is kind of, I think, sign of the times type thing, the Toyota thing. And so I'm going to ask you a question about, what about cases where a person gets injured, not because of any fault of anyone, but something malfunctioned in the car itself, and somebody got injured? What happens to these kind of cases, and how would you address them?
Well, that's an area of the law we call products liability, and there are so many things in the modern car, computers, restraint systems, the airbags, seat belts, so many things that can cause an injury because of a malfunction. Yeah, if the brakes don't work, the steering doesn't work, or something of that nature. So there's two different areas that we talk about there. One could be in reference to a mechanic. I've had cases where a mechanic has worked on a car, forgot to tighten down a lug bolt or something of that nature, person starts driving away, the tire falls off and you have a serious accident. So that's one type of case. The other type is if there really is a defect in the manufacturing of the vehicle or the design of the vehicle. So if you have a seat belt, I actually had a case where what we call a three-point restraint, which means the seat belt comes around and it locks in here and it has a lap and a shoulder portion to it. And there's a little button that it sticks into. Mm-hmm. At this time, the little button had a surface area that was open, so it became dislodged during the accident. Someone just hit it with their elbow, dislodged, person got ejected from the car. And the CHP's opinion right away was, oh, well, that person didn't have a seatbelt on. When in fact, really, it was dislodged because of the open surface area. So after that, the car manufacturer redesigned the button so that it was partially covered on four sides. So it had to be hit just with a finger to dislodge. So it couldn't become accidentally dislodged. So that's an example of a defect.
Okay. What would you advise, by the way, do you take these kind of cases, product liability cases?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, you may have a few with the Toyota fiasco that's going on right now, I would say. Right. And so if you are involved, again, let me address our viewers. Our guest tonight is Mr. Jeffrey Janoff. He specializes in personal injury and other torts, such as product liability. And Mr. Janoff can be reached here in San Jose at area code 408-286-2300. Jeffrey Janoff is our guest tonight. All right. I got involved in a car accident. My life is miserable. I am emotionally stressed out. I have a lot of emotional problems. Is there a remedy for that? Can I get compensated for my emotional stress and emotional...
Yes, you can. That's really an area that isn't well handled, I think, by some counsel. Some attorneys, I think, want to shy away from that because it's a little bit of a touchy-feely kind of a subject, and it's a little more difficult to deal with. But I think it's just as important. Some car accidents, like the one I described, where a person's spinning in the roadway, is worried that they're going to get hit by another car and die. I mean, it's a real impact. And some people suffer what's called a traumatic injury, emotional traumatic injury from that. And that can cause them to have nightmares, it can cause them to become withdrawn, to have flashbacks, to be depressed. There's a lot of things that can happen in a serious accident. Mm-hmm. So that really is an issue that needs to be looked at. Oftentimes people don't realize that they have that until there's some inquiry. It's funny, oftentimes I have to be the doctor in cases. I'm
Well, I mean, that's the
did
sign
the
of...
doctor ask you this? And they say, no. You know, so.
Well, I think a sign of a good attorney is someone that you know, digs into all of the facts and try to locate the issues for his client, his or her client, and make sure that they are properly compensated, and I commend you on doing so. So emotional distress can be, in fact, compensated in a PI case, in a personal injury case.
Right.
Okay. What about a loss of consortium, inability to have, excuse me, but, you know, being able to sleep with my spouse? Is there compensation for that?
I was just going to mention that, actually, before you asked me that question. Loss of consortium, yes. Okay. It is beyond the scope of just marital relations, though, because what it means, really, is the loss of one's services. Right. So in other words, in a married couple today where the husband works, the wife works, everybody has to do their share, and one of them now cannot. So the other person has to pick up the slack. That's what we really mean by loss of consortium.
Yeah. I was going to make a funny joke about the profession itself, but I'm not going to do that. All right. What about lost wages? In other words, if I lose 3-4 weeks of work because of the accident, is this compensable?
Right. That's part of what we call economic damages. So there's non-economic and economic. Non-economic being pain, suffering, loss of consortium, things like that. The economic damage is whatever you lose because you are not able to work due to injuries. You could be with a terrible, terrible back. You just cannot even get out of bed in the morning. So you're not going to be able to sit at your desk. You're not going to be able to work on the computer. You're not going to be able to dig ditches. You're not going to be able to teach in your classroom. Whatever the work might be, if a doctor confirms that you're disabled, then definitely you would have a loss of wages.
Okay.
And that, by the way, that can go into the future, too, if you're going to have a surgery or something of that nature.
Dealing with insurance companies these days is one of the toughest things that's happening. And partially there is some, I would say, paranoia from the insurance companies thinking that everybody is trying to defraud them.
That's right.
And therefore they are becoming much, much tougher to handle and deal with.
You're correct.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's the local issue of how we deal with one particular case with one insurance company, and there's the bigger picture of what is the insurance company doing politically with all the money that they make, and are they losing money on the real estate, and that's why they're being tougher to settle claims. I mean, there's a lot of issues like that, but looking at it just case by case, which is what people care about, yes, generally they are more difficult, and you have to document a file very well. You have to cross the T's, dot the I's. You have to have papers from the doctors. You have to have the photographs. You have to have the police report. You have to be well documented and present your case factually to the insurance company to obtain the best result. And that's really why a lawyer is important in these kinds of cases, because a lawyer knows how to develop the case properly.
Which is a very good segue to my next question. But before I go to that next question, I want to let our viewers know that our guest tonight is Jeffrey Janoff. He again works exclusively on torts cases, such as personal injury, products, liabilities, and the like. And if you need to get hold of Mr. Janoff, you can give him a call at 408-286-2300. This is your chance to make your case. Why would I choose Jeffrey Janoff as my attorney versus someone else?
Well, I think based upon what I just said, I think an attorney needs to document a file well and understand the client and the client's needs. I think I probably spend a lot more time with clients than a lot of lawyers do. I don't like to have a sort of assembly line law. I like to be individualized. I spend a lot of time. I try to understand the case. I understand the problems that my clients are having right then and there. People are always amazed because when they come to see me, sometimes I'll pick up the phone right away and I'll make a call on their case. And they think, oh, he's working on it. That's great. And that's the way I am. I'm kind of more of a take charge person.
So you're a people's person, you have good bedside manners, and you give them...
I hope so. I think so.
And you do return their calls, I hope? And
that's one of the most important things to do.
I find that to be actually quite truthful in that if, you know, the clients get really upset if they don't get return calls. And if you're doing that, that's fantastic.
Now, of course, we have email, so...
Yeah, so you communicate with them one way or another.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I want you to give me some final thoughts, if you want, because we have about 4 minutes left in the program here, on settling with an insurance company. And take us through the process of how do you arrive at a settlement versus a trial, and you know, give us some thoughts and ideas about this.
Sure. Probably about 95% of all cases are settled with insurance companies. So 5% only are getting tried. Why are those 5% getting tried? Because there's a big difference between where the insurance company is and where the client is in terms of what they think the case is worth. And that gap just can't be filled in. So therefore, we go to trial, we go to a jury, and the jury decides that question. But in the cases that are decided by settlement, it's because we were able to marshal the evidence. That is, what are the economic losses? Is there a wage loss? We figure out what that is. What are the medical expenses? We figure out what those are. And also, past, present, and future, what is going to happen to this person?
Earnings.
In terms of earnings and also in terms of their condition, their medical condition. They may have a condition which will be for the rest of their lives. They may have a condition that's going to need a surgery, but they don't have the money to pay for surgery, so it's part of the future consideration. So marshaling all of this evidence and documentation together, presenting it, and understanding what cases are worth in this community. One thing I do tell my clients in trying to understand this is their case is like a product. It's like something you'd buy in the grocery store. I mean, you don't go to the grocery store and buy a carton of milk for $10. It's not worth it. Yeah. So you have to find that right value. And that's where a case will settle.
So you do some comparison shopping in a way and find out this kind of cases in Santa Clara County, what have juries been granting or deciding on these kind of cases. Now, Santa Clara County, to my knowledge, is a bit conservative in terms of awarding damages to injured people. Do you find that to be true?
Well, it does have that reputation, and I think in the past that's been true, but I think it depends on how you present the case, and it depends on the person involved, and if the person really is a credible, deserving person, I think the jury's going to see that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you do all kind of preparation with your client and help them through this process, because it is sometimes taxing and quite emotional.
And it's very stressful too.
Very stressful.
Yes.
Do you sometimes run into a problem where Jeffrey Janoff, the very experienced attorney that knows the value of a given case is worth X number of dollars, and you know, dollars and cents is what compensate for, as you suggested, economic and non-economic damages. But do you find it sometimes difficult with a client that thinks his or her case is worth X number while you really think it's only worth Y? How do you deal with these kind of situations?
That's a very good question, and that does happen sometimes. And I think it comes from just not having the experience in dealing with what cases are worth. And I will sit down with the client. I'll spend the time to go through how do we come up with a value in the case. And if we go through it and the client understands the criteria for determining that, then I think they usually will accept my view of it, because I'm not just saying, hey, this is what it is, you have to believe me, without having some explanation. I like to provide an explanation. So I think that works better in the long run.
Absolutely. And how do you handle the fact, or the education, I would say, of the client, of letting them know that this is not something that is going to be settling in a month or two, but rather the system and the wheels of justice kind of are very slow here? How do you handle this, and what kind of length has it been taken for the personal injury cases these days? Right.
If we file in court, it's going to take at least a year. But what happens is that there's two phases to the case. So there's the first phase where we're dealing with an insurance company, and we might get a negotiation going with the insurance company, and I say to the client, well, here's the number, do we like this number? If they say, I don't like this number, I'll say, well, okay, we don't have to settle. We go to the next stage, which is court. Now it's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to cost more money, and so we try to figure out whether it's worthwhile to proceed. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
So you do an economic analysis of the case and basically explain to the client the time value of the money plus the emotional stress plus your percentage also goes higher as you go to trial versus no trial. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. What else would you advise the clients to do when they come into your office, after they come into your office? For instance, do you require them not to talk to anyone? What kind of process do you take them through to prepare them for the next year or year and a half during this litigation?
Right. Well, the most important thing, clients talk about, well, the attorney isn't returning phone calls. It's a two-way street. I want the client to contact me too. I need them to keep me updated on their medical condition. If they change addresses, sometimes they change and they don't tell me. So to stay in constant contact and communication is the most important thing. In my office, I send copies of letters of everything I do to the client, so they know exactly what's going on. When I first see a client, I set up what's called a 90-day appointment. So I will see that client back in 90 days no matter what. A little bit like what doctors do. They say, yeah, come back and see me.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And after the 90 days, once you meet them, you kind of take them by the hand and tell them what is going on, the next step. So you keep them always advised as to what the next step is going to be.
Right. I mean, it's a team effort, in my opinion. It's really a team effort. So we're working together to get the best result.
Are there any pending litigation that will impact your practice? I mean, not litigation, I'm sorry, pending legislation is what I wanted to say.
Actually, there's always something going on in Sacramento to limit fees and people's recoveries.
And would you come back and talk to us about that the next time?
Sure.
Because our time is unfortunately run out.
I would love to.
Okay. And thank you for watching us tonight. We were very happy, and I hope you were, having Jeffrey Janoff as our guest tonight. And again, if you have any personal injury or any other tort issues such as product liability, also he handles sexual harassment in the workplace. Any of these cases, you can give Jeffrey Janoff a call. He can be reached at 408-286-2300. We want to thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, give me a call with your suggestions. I'm Stewart Fahmy, and you can reach me at 408-666-0000. Good night, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Good job.